Hello again. Here we are on part 6. I went ahead and finished up the lip syncing and coloring of Jamie off screen. By this point, I was pretty sure you'd seen enough of it for a while. Last time, we were working on the rough drawings for Jamie, and we're going to start this episode with drawing the first few finished frames. We'll go back to working on the roughs later in the episode, but this is what we're starting with. Like I mentioned in the previous episode, I'm animating the head and the rest of the body separately, so that's why you'll just see the stump of the neck while we're working through this. I'd also like to briefly touch on this episode. I'd finished it up a few days ago and was already moved past and working on the next episode. In episode 7, you'll notice I make note of some issues that I had with this episode. I've gone back and since corrected them. Right now, it's Thursday night and I just wasn't satisfied with the quality of the video I was releasing. There were audio and graphical issues that would have resulted in releasing something that I just wouldn't have been proud of. So even though it's really late right now, I'm redoing this because I couldn't not. It's a little weird doing commentary on an older episode, since I've already spent some time talking about the stuff that hasn't happened yet. I'll try and stay focused and talk about what's in front of us. Right now, we're working through some of the first few frames. Like I mentioned, one of the issues that I ended up having throughout this episode is that I have a very difficult time properly drawing the female physique, namely Jamie's boobs. Their physics I can handle just fine, but their shape is what I have the most difficulty drawing correctly. You'll notice right here that I'm adding a midriff by incident. Even though I have her character model right next to what I'm drawing, I added that in based on an older, although still mostly accurate sketch of her. She looked pretty much the same, but with different clothes. Not off model, just not the proper attire. What's nice about doing in-betweens is that you don't need to be super detailed with them. Keyframes deserve the most attention, and the slower movements as well, but for the quick actions like what Jamie's doing, you can keep things pretty simple, and even skimp on some of the polish that would normally be there. It'll go unnoticed in scenes like this one. Granted, I do end up putting a lot of detail in some of my construction lines later on in this video. I'd just forgotten what I was doing and reverted back to some older animation habits, not doing the constructions first. It ended up looking really nice and may have saved me a decent amount of time, but it's not a habit that you want to have. You want to try and get rid of that as soon as you can. As you can see right here, what I should have done with the breasts is perhaps put them on a separate layer and animated them first, then gone back and drew over the rest of the body. Because of the way they work, they have their own movements that are influenced by the rest of the body, but are delayed and they bounce. Again, the end result was perfectly fine regardless. One of the nice things about having exaggerated movements is that you can get away with a lot of things that aren't quite anatomically correct. That arm is perhaps a bit too long, but it works because Jamie's flinging it out. Other benefits, particularly in this scene, is that I'm going to be able to reuse a decent amount of the drawings, taking that same arm and repositioning it a little bit, rotating the hand and shifting it downwards. It saves me the time and effort of redrawing it without detracting from the image. This is the moment when I realized that I added the midriff to some of the drawings, but not to others. It was a quick fix, but I'm glad I caught it and was able to correct it. It's also possible that I added in because she was stretching upwards and the shirt may have come up a bit. However, playing it back, it didn't look right regardless of whatever the case was. I decided to fix it. And now we're back to working on construction drawings. I'm having her lean forward with her hands on her hips, sort of a way an adult would lean downwards towards a child, playing on Mac's childish fear. I'd forgotten to add the shirt neckline thingy on the finals, so I had to go back and add that. It's sorta odd seeing how much jumping around back and forth I do while working on a scene. But, I don't know, I guess that's just sort of how I end up doing things. I guess I'd say it's better to miss it and correct it than miss it, find it later and then correct it, than go back and do it afterwards. So, this was sort of the point that I realized I was spending too much time on doing my roughs. So I simplified things a little bit, but it didn't really work out very well. I kind of ended up going back to doing something a little bit more detailed. This is also the part where I decided to stop recording. I was trying to do foreshortening of her arm, but it just wasn't working out, so I stopped the recording. Foreshortening isn't terribly difficult, but when coupled with drawing a hand, something that I already struggle with from time to time, I just couldn't figure it out. So I stopped it, figured it out, and came back to it afterwards. I ended up switching which arm she used, and allowed me to avoid foreshortening altogether. And now back to in-betweening. I really hate to do this, but if I want to get this all edited together, exported, and re-uploaded, I'm gonna have to cut this commentary short. I'll let the rest of the footage play out, but I don't have much else to say. I hope you enjoyed it, and at the very least, be glad you didn't have to see what I had originally ended up with for this episode. Tune in next time for part 7, and enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a little thumbs up. And if you have questions, comments, or suggestions, feel free to leave a comment below, so that I know, and so that I can keep providing you with something to watch. To check out the rest of this series, click on the TV, and if you want to see the first episode of Miserable Mac, click on the computer. For more of my other work, take a look at my YouTube page, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again for watching.